This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Housekeeping, Laundry, and Maintenance. I'm Suan Hays. I work for the Oklahoma State Department of Health. I'm a clinical health facility surveyor 3. I've been a surveyor for 10 years, and the last 3 I've spent in the training department training our surveyors to come out and survey your facilities. So we just want to talk a little bit, probably not very long, on housekeeping, laundry, and maintenance. So F-tag 584 is the environment tag. The facility must provide a safe, clean, comfortable, and home-like environment, allowing the resident to use his or her personal belongings to the extent possible. And this pertains to any environment that is frequented by the residents, whether it's inside or outside. And this has to do with overhead paging and piped-in music, meal service using trays, medication carts, long-term use of audible chair and bed alarms, mass purchase furniture, drapes, bedspreads, centrally located nursing stations. These are all things that you need to think about whenever you're thinking about your environment. If you're sitting at home watching television in your lazy chair, kicked back there, are you going to want to be hearing music piped in and paging all the time coming in over the intercom? Serving on meal trays. Some facilities, the residents actually want the tray left on their table. But if that's what you're doing, you better make sure that you have documentation that the resident council wanted it that way. Look at your medication carts. Do they look like a nurse's medication cart? We're not telling you have to go out and change your medication carts out, but if you ever decide that you want to purchase a new one, there are some that look like dressers that sit up beside the wall instead of an actual cart. And think about the audible chair and bed alarms. Those are really annoying, especially whenever you're trying to sleep. In your mass purchase furniture, drapes, and bedspreads, that all makes it look a whole lot more institutional than if you allow them to have their own furnishings in the building. This tag also talks about the lighting levels, private closet space, temperature levels, the sound levels, all of those things. But we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. Your housekeeping tag is F584. And this says the facility must provide housekeeping and maintenance services necessary to maintain a sanitary, orderly, and comfortable interior. This is extremely important in this day and age of COVID. This is something that can definitely help you protect your residents whenever this is taken seriously. Sanitary includes preventing the spread of disease-causing organisms by keeping the resident care equipment clean and properly stored. And that's not just their walkers and their wheelchairs, but that's the chairs that they sit on, that's the chairs in the dining room, that's the handrails as they go down the hall. All of those things need to be maintained and cleaned. Orderly means in an uncluttered physical environment that is clean and neat. We can't have a whole lot of things in the hallway. Actually, I believe that's a fire hazard, and the life safety code will get you if you've got a lot of stuff stored in your hallways. Bed linens come under 584. The facility must provide clean bed and bath linens that are in good condition. We don't want to be able to go to your closet, your linen closet, and find a whole bunch of sheets that if I picked them up and put a newspaper behind them that I could read the newspaper through. We also don't like to see a whole lot of terrible, horrible stains on them. You wouldn't want those on your bed at home. So why would you put those on a resident's bed? So just make sure that you're providing clean bed and bath linens and that they're in good condition. We're going to kind of switch over to quality of care here for just a minute. And this is going to be related to F689, which is the accident tags. And this really is important whenever it comes to your environment and maintaining equipment. The facility must ensure that the resident environment remains as free from accident hazards as is possible, and that each resident receives adequate supervision and assistance devices to prevent accidents. So falls, all those avoidable, unavoidable accidents, smoking, adequate supervision, the position change alarms, wandering, elopement, your water temperatures, your electrical safety, all of those things can come into play here, and we can actually see accidents from all of those issues. So when you're looking at accidents, one of the big things that maintenance can help with is to keep the water temperature regulated. So when you're looking at the water temperatures, whenever you see this, it only takes 1 second at 155 degrees for a resident to receive a 3rd-degree burn. That is no time at all. 15 seconds at 133. 1 minute at 127. So you really need to keep those monitored. State regulations state that the water temperatures in the resident rooms and the shower rooms should be 115 or less. Bed rails. This is F700. The facility must attempt to use appropriate alternatives prior to installing a bed or a bed rail. If a bed or side rail is used, the facility must ensure correct installation, use, and maintenance of the bed rails. Here's where maintenance also comes into play. Those bed rails are a safety hazard big time. The residents can get hung up in those rails, and if they're not used properly, the facility can actually be cited for a physical restraint. My suggestion would be whenever you think that you need to use a bed rail, some residents may request one to be able to know where the perimeter of the bed is. I would use the least minimal that you can put on there. It may just be one of those hand grab bars that are at the top, but avoid using a full rail if at all possible. That's whenever you really get into the situation of them becoming a restraint. 908 is the space and equipment. The facility must maintain all essential mechanical, electrical, and patient care equipment in safe operating condition. Now, this is going to include your handrails. If you'll notice, whenever the surveyors first get there and they're making their initial tours down the hall, you'll see most of the surveyors walking from one side of the hall to the other side of the hall, grabbing the rail. We're seeing if that handrail is stable and if it's secure. We're going to be looking at your carpets. Or do the carpets have buckles in them? Are there strings on the carpet that one of the residents can get their toes caught in or their walkers caught in? What about electrical cords? We look at those. The electrical cords, you are not allowed to have extension cords in resident rooms. Walkers, wheelchairs, all those types of situations need to be kept in good condition and clean. The beds all need to be working condition and clean. We're also looking at the Hoyer lifts, your bathing chairs, the whirlpools, all those types of equipment are things that need to be maintained and taken care of. For your dining activities and your dining room and your activity rooms, this is 920. The facility must provide one or more rooms designated for resident dining and activities. These rooms should be well lighted, well ventilated with non-smoking areas identified, be adequately furnished, and have sufficient space to accommodate all the activities. So if you have a lot of residents that come in their wheelchairs, you've got to make sure that you have enough room to accommodate all those wheelchairs. Most of these things also pertain not only to just the activities in the dining room as far as the lighting, the ventilation, temperature, all that kind of stuff, but they basically refer to all areas of the facility that a resident would frequent. Other environmental conditions is 921. The facility must provide a safe, functional, sanitary, and comfortable environment for resident staff and the public. This tag is almost identical to the 584 tag, except this tag, a lot of this is pertaining to your outside environment, and that's going to include uneven sidewalks. Is there any equipment stored outside that the residents could get into? Those types of situations. So this is what 921 is usually for outside environment. The facility must maintain an effective pest control program so that the facility is free of pests and rodents. And that's 925. When we first get there, one of the surveyors usually goes straight to the kitchen, and we are looking for mouse droppings and cockroaches face up. And we hope not to find any of those things. So it is important that you keep a pest control company and basically have scheduled maintenance from them. Infection control is F880. You wouldn't think necessarily that that would come into play in housekeeping, linens, and the environment or maintenance, but a lot of the environment and the housekeeping does pertain to infection control, and you will a lot of times see any of these tags that we've talked about also will cross over to the infection control tags. So the facility must maintain and establish a prevention and control program designed to provide a safe, sanitary, and comfortable environment and to help prevent the development and transmission of communicable diseases and infections. Once again, here's COVID comes into play. So under 880, you wouldn't think that you would find it, but under 880 infection control is the linens. And there's quite a bit of guidance regarding linens under 880, and we'll go through some of that. So the personnel must handle, store, process, and transport linens so as to prevent the spread of infection. All linen should be handled as if it is potentially contaminated. In other words, use standard precautions. They should be wearing their gloves anytime they're handling any types of dirty linens in order to prevent cross-contamination. No additional separation or special labeling is required. Probably best practice is to make sure that all of the linens are bagged while they are still in the resident's room and not carried out into the hall, being hugged to their chest and then carried down to the dirty linen closet. No special precautions such as double bagging is recommended for linens originating in isolation rooms. If you are handling all of your linen as potentially contaminated, there shouldn't have to be any special needs for the isolation rooms. Now, this all depends too on whatever your facility policy is. If your facility policy is to take any linens from the isolation rooms and place them in these water dissolvable bags, then that's what you need to be doing. So be sure and look at your facility's policy on exactly how to handle the linens from the isolation rooms. Personnel should bag or contain the contaminated linen at the point of use. Basically, it should be bagged in the room to avoid contamination of air, surfaces, and other persons in the environmental, basically for environmental contamination. So that is basically one of the standard practices, and I do believe that this is actually suggested in the Psalm under F880. Double bagging is only recommended if the outside of the bag is visibly contaminated or observed to be wet to the outside of the bag. Then you can put them in the leak-resistant bags recommended for linens contaminated with blood or body substances. The laundry staff need to have PPE. They need to have gowns and gloves available whenever they are sorting the laundry. We can't have them being contaminated with all of the laundry and then walking back out into the facility. The facilities can use any detergent for laundry. So many of them now actually have microbial elements in them. Just make sure that whenever you do use anything like that, that you look and make sure that it's going to stand up to the standard that CMS has set. There are hot water washes, which is above 160 degrees for 25 minutes. And there's a low temp watch, which is 71 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you have to use 125 parts per million bleach rinse in that one compared to the high temp. Most facilities do automatically have a sanitizer that goes into their machines during the rinse cycle, so that this is not necessarily always an issue. It's kind of a better safe than sorry thing. Chlorine bleach rinse is not required for all linens washed in low temperature due to modern detergents produce hygienically clean laundry without bleach. That's what I was talking about just a minute ago, but you need to make sure that those detergents are what you need to be using. And your cotton linens may still be rinsed with bleach. So the facilities are not required to maintain a record of water temperatures during laundry processing. A lot of times the surveyor may ask, do you record your water temps? How do you know that they are actually getting to the temperature that needs to be for that, whether you're doing a hot wash or a warm wash? But you just know that you do not have to maintain those records, but somebody needs to know what the temps are and how they are monitored. Damp laundry should not be left in the machines overnight. So if your linen person is leaving and they've left a load in the machine, then somebody needs to go in and remove those and put them in the dryers. The laundry equipment, such as your washers and dryers and your laundry detergent, rinse aids, or other additives, must all be used according to the manufacturer's instructions for use. Most of the companies that provide the rinse aids and the detergents, they will tell you how to use those and will actually set the machine so that they dispense exactly what needs to be dispensed. So every facility should have policies and procedures for handling and processing the soiled linens, as well as handling, transporting, and storing clean linens. Whenever you set up your laundry room, there should be, if at all possible, I know some of the older homes don't have an actual two ways in or out. You should have a door that you enter, and that would be your dirty side. And then everything gets washed. And then as you work your way through, it goes to the clean side where it's after it's washed and dried, it gets folded and hung up, and then it comes out the clean door, so that at no time does the contaminated linens ever come in contact with the clean linens. Just something to think about as you're setting up your laundry rooms. Most of you already have them set up and probably are just quite acceptable to the surveyors if deficiencies haven't been written on them. Usually if we write a linens deficiency, it's usually because the linens are so threadbare that it's amazing that they're even still standing. If we write a laundry tag, it's usually because whoever was doing the laundry was not handling them properly and there was cross-contamination going on in the laundry room. It's also important that that laundry person make sure that they clean the filters out from underneath the dryers. Very, very big fire hazard. Need to make sure that those are cleaned out, and not just once a week, but probably several times a day. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here. I think that kind of hits the big points of where we're at. Main thing is remember that your environment is very important to keeping your residents safe. Make sure that everything is being cleaned as thoroughly as you can clean it. Make sure that all of the equipment is being maintained, that there are not items laying around that could create hazards, fall hazards, tripping hazards, electrical hazards, water temperature hazards. That sometimes is a big one that we do right. And that will allow you to protect your residents. If you have any questions, if you will get those to Z, he can get them to me and I will see if there's any way that I can answer them. In the meantime, I think that's probably it for this training. I hope you all stay safe and have a good day. Goodbye.